Have you ever been absolutely certain of a memory? I mean, just crystal clear.
Like you have the receipt in your head.
Exactly. You remember the exact words spoken, the
Right.
specific tone of voice, maybe even that uncomfortable, heavy feeling in the room.
Right.
And then you bring it up later to the person involved, and they just calmly look you in the eye and say, that never happened.
It is the absolute worst feeling.
Or maybe they tilt their head and go, you're remembering it wrong.
Yeah.
Or worse, they give you that little condescending laugh and say, wow, you really do like to dramatize things, don't you?
Yeah. It's a very specific, deeply unsettling kind of stomach drop, isn't it? When you are met with that absolute, unwavering certainty that your reality is just, well, false.
It really is. It's a jolt to your entire nervous system.
Yeah.
And suddenly, you aren't just questioning the argument or the situation anymore. The ground falls out from under you, and you are questioning your own mind.
You start the spiral.
Right, the internal spiral. You walk away from the conversation thinking, wait, am I overreacting? Is my memory genuinely failing? Why can't I just be normal?
Mm-hmm.
And if you are listening to this deep dive right now, and you have ever felt that way, we need you to know something right out of the gate. That spiral is not an accident.
No, you absolutely do not just stumble into that feeling of profound confusion.
Right. And that is the mission of our deep dive today. We are not just exploring messy interpersonal drama here or, bad communication habits or couples who just don't know how to fight fair.
We're going way past that.
We really are. We're unpacking the exact step-by-step psychological mechanics of how manipulators systematically rewrite your mind.
And we've got the receipts for this.
We do. To do this, we're not just looking at pop psychology. We've pulled together an incredible stack of sources for you today. We've got foundational definitions from medical giants like Healthline and the Cleveland Clinic.
Essential baselines.
Yep. Plus psychological and neurological deep dives from Psychology Today and Science Direct. And then we're bringing in specialized, hard-hitting literature on coercive control from experts like R.J. Starr, Dr. Emma Katz, and the GBV Learning Network.
What's fascinating here is that when you look at all these wildly different fields, when you put a clinical neurologist's brain scan right next to a domestic abuse advocate's behavioral framework, they all converge on the exact same point.
All the same map.
Exactly. This phenomenon is not accidental. It is a calculated, systematic process. It has a visible biological impact on the victim.
Wow.
And the goal of our deep dive today is to give you the vocabulary to recognize these tactics in real time, to understand the underlying brain science of exactly why they work on you. And finally, to learn how to build an impenetrable defense against them.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to start by defining what this reality-bending phenomenon actually is, clinically speaking. Because, a lot of people throw around terms online, and we need to separate the internet buzzwords from what psychologists are actually studying.
Right. The term for this specific kind of reality manipulation is gaslighting.
Gaslighting.
Yeah.
But I feel like that word has really lost its teeth lately,
Oh, it absolutely has. It's a term that has suffered from a severe case of semantic bleach over the last few years.
Semantic bleach, I like that.
Yeah, people use it casually now to mean someone disagreed with me or someone lied about where they were last night, or even just someone was generally unpleasant.
Right, like, my barista gaslit me about my coffee order.
Exactly. But when we look at the medical literature, like the Healthline and anti-loneliness sources, the threshold for this behavior is much, much more severe.
It's not just a disagreement.
No, medical institutions define it very specifically as a sustained form of emotional abuse. The key phrase across the literature is that it is a direct, active attempt to make you question your beliefs, your behaviors, and fundamentally, your perception of reality.
Yeah, one of our psychiatric sources describes it as an active attempt to alter your environment. And the Cleveland Clinic adds a crucial layer, stating that the ultimate outcome of this behavior is that it makes victims mistrust their own judgment.
Mistrust. That is the word.
That word seems to be the linchpin of the whole thing.
It is the entire objective. And this requires us to make a really important distinction right away, because this is where people get tripped up. Gaslighting is not just a lie.
Wait, really? Because isn't the core of it telling you something didn't happen when it did?
Yeah.
Isn't that by definition just lying?
It utilizes lying, sure, but the mechanics and the goals are entirely different. Think about a standard lie. Say someone breaks a vase in the living room. You walk in, you see the shattered glass, and you ask what happened.
Okay.
They panic and say, the dog knocked it over. That is a defensive lie.
Right, covering their tracks.
Exactly. They are trying to hide a mistake, avoid accountability, or escape a consequence. It's purely self-preservation. Gaslighting, however, is offensive.
Offense.
Yes, it is a systematic, targeted attack on your cognitive processing. The goal isn't just to hide the broken vase. The goal is to convince you that you don't even know what a vase is.
Oh, wow. Okay, so if a normal lie is like someone hiding a physical document from you so you can't read it, gaslighting is like someone hacking into your computer, opening up all your personal documents, changing the fonts, deleting paragraphs, rewriting the history of what you've done.
Yes.
And then calmly convincing you that you were the one who typed all those new words while you were sleepwalking.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. You are being hacked. And the crucial element in that hacking analogy is the timeline.
It doesn't happen overnight.
No. The sources heavily emphasize the phrase gradual erosion. This is not a smash and grab operation. It is the sheer relentless repetition of these attacks on your reality that wears down your internal compass.
Because if someone tried to hack your reality on day one of meeting them, right? Like if you went on a first date and they told you that you didn't actually order the chicken when you clearly did.
You'd just think they were completely unhinged and you'd walk away.
Exactly. The human brain's natural defenses would immediately reject that.
But it doesn't happen on day one. It happens slowly, drip by drip, over months or years. The manipulator slowly introduces malware into your operating system until you can no longer trust your own error logs.
Man. Which means we need to understand how this erosion actually happens day to day. Like, how does the malware actually get installed?
We have to look at the toolkit.
Right, the manipulator's toolkit. Across the psychological frameworks, from Help Guide, Empathize, TANF Online, there are 5 distinct tactics of reality distortion that manipulators cycle through.
And it really is a synchronized attack.
Yeah, and I want to explore how they weave these together, because it usually starts with the most blunt instrument of all, which is absolute denial.
Right. Flatly stating, I never said that, or that is not what happened.
Just a brick wall.
Exactly. Now, you might think, again, that this is just a normal argument where two people remember things differently. But Help Guide and the psychological literature note a very specific, dangerous behavioral marker here.
What's that?
It's the abuser's absolute, unwavering insistence that their version is the only objective truth in the universe. There is zero room for negotiation.
No. Let's agree to disagree.
None. There is no, maybe we just remember it differently, let's figure it out. It is a solid brick wall of denial.
And the audacity of that denial is what throws you off. But eventually, if you push back hard enough, like if you actually have proof, maybe a text message or an email that proves they did say the thing they're denying, they don't apologize.
Oh, never.
They immediately pivot to the next tool in the kit, which is trivializing and shaming your reaction to the event.
This is a devastating pivot. And it's incredibly insidious. Let's say you prove the event happened. The manipulator realizes they can't delete the factual reality of the event anymore.
The text message is right there.
Right. So what do? The Cleveland Clinic points out that they attack your emotional reality instead. They look at you and say, okay, fine, I said it, but you're seriously upset about that? You are way too sensitive. You're overreacting to a tiny joke.
Wow. So if they can't convince you that the event didn't happen, they convince you that your emotional response to the event is fundamentally defective.
Precisely. They make you mistrust your own feelings. And if you can't trust your feelings, you lose your internal alarm system.
That is such a good way to put it.
Your emotions are data. When someone hurts you, the pain is data telling you that a boundary was crossed. If a manipulator can convince you that your data processing is broken, that your pain is just you being dramatic, they essentially disable your security system.
You no longer have the authority to decide when you are being mistreated.
Exactly.
That is terrifying.
And it seamlessly feeds into the third tactic, which is how they rewrite history. Because once your alarm system is disabled, they can start recasting the roles of the entire relationship.
Emma Katz writes about this extensively, right? They take an event that definitely happened, but they edit the character motivations. You try to talk about an argument you had, and they say, I was perfectly calm yesterday. You were the one who completely lost your mind.
The manipulator creates a completely distorted, fictionalized version of reality and then actively pulls the partner into it. They aren't just defending their own actions anymore.
They're going on the offensive again.
Yes. They are forcing you into a narrative where they are the calm, rational, long-suffering partner, and you are the unstable, volatile one.
And if you try to defend yourself against that, if you say, wait, no, I wasn't unstable, I was just trying to get you to listen to me.
Right.
They hit you with the fourth layer of the attack.
Projection.
Right, projection and blame shifting.
Yeah.
Empathy talks about this. They project their own behavior onto you. They literally accuse you of being the manipulative one.
Right.
I've read accounts where the abuser looks the victim dead in the eye and says, "You are gaslighting me."
It's mind-bending.
But I want to pause and challenge this for a second because this feels like a gray area. Isn't projection just a normal, albeit flawed, human defense mechanism?
Sure.
I mean, we all get defensive sometimes. If I feel cornered about forgetting to pay a bill, I might instinctively snap back, "Well, you forgot to buy groceries last week." We all deflect. How is this different from normal human friction?
That's a vital distinction, and I'm glad you brought it up. Yes, normal, clumsy, defensive projection happens in healthy relationships all the time. It's a standard human glitch.
Right.
But in the context of this reality distortion we're discussing, we are talking about the systematic weaponization of projection. It is not a clumsy, in-the-moment reaction. It is used continuously, deliberately as a tactical smokescreen.
A smokescreen to hide what?
To hide their continued abuse. Think about the mechanics of it. If they accuse you of being the manipulative one or the dishonest one, what do you instantly do?
I start defending myself.
Exactly. You drop whatever point you were trying to make and you start frantically defending your own character. You say, "No, I'm not manipulative. I'm just trying to explain why I'm hurt."
Oh, man.
And suddenly the conversation is entirely about your character, your sanity, and your intentions. You are so busy and exhausted trying to prove that you are a good person that you completely forget to hold them accountable for what they originally did.
It forces you to play perpetual defense.
Perpetual defense?
Wow. You're constantly on trial trying to prove your innocence to the very person who committed the crime. That sounds incredibly exhausting.
It is neurologically draining, and that exhaustion is exactly what the manipulator relies on for their fifth and perhaps most devastating tactic.
Which is withholding and stonewalling.
Yes. The GBV Learning Network highlights this. Once you are exhausted from trying to prove your reality, from defending your character, from trying to make sense of the trivializing, they just shut down.
To the wall of ice.
They say, "I'm not doing this with you. I don't know what you're talking about. Just drop it." And then they give you days of cold, punishing silence.
And the research points to this as a massive tool for control. But I have to ask, why? Why is silence so effective? You'd think silence would give the victor a break, a chance to catch their breath and see things clearly.
You'd think so logically, but psychologically it's the exact opposite. The human brain is a meaning-making machine. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Right.
When you are denied information, when you are shut out and met with a blank wall of silence from someone you are attached to, your anxious brain simply cannot tolerate the void. It rushes to fill the gaps.
It needs a story.
It desperately tries to solve the puzzle of why the person it loves is completely withdrawing affection.
And because you've already been conditioned by the previous tactics, because you've already been told you're too sensitive, your memory's wrong, and you're the instigator, what do you fill that void of silence with?
Self-blame. You fill the silence with the exact narrative they've been feeding you. You sit alone in the quiet and think, if they are this mad at me, if they're refusing to even look at me, I must have done something truly awful.
I must have pushed them too far.
I need to figure out what I did wrong, go apologize, and fix this.
The stonewalling literally forces you to do the manipulator's work for them. They don't even have to lie to you anymore. You are gaslighting yourself in the silence.
Precisely. You become an active participant in the erosion of your own reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Up until now, we've been talking about the external environment, what the person says to you, the arguments, the silence.
Yeah.
But the sources we reviewed take a massive left turn here.
Into the biology.
Yes. They dive incredibly deep into the biological, internal, physical effect this abuse actually has on the organ inside your skull. Because the natural question anyone listening might have is, well, why does the brain surrender? If someone tells you the sky is green, why don't you just hold firm, trust your own eyes, and say, no, it's blue, and you're lying?
Because the brain is not a static object. It is physically and chemically reacting to the environment it is placed in. Surrendering to this kind of manipulation is rarely a matter of weak willpower.
It's not just being weak.
Not at all. It is almost always a matter of depleted neurological resources. The clinical studies, particularly from Psychology Today and Science Direct, break this down into a few highly observable mechanisms. The very first one is cognitive overload.
Right, the sheer mental exhaustion of it all. R.J. Starr's framework notes that constantly scrambling to resolve conflicting versions of reality absolutely drains your brain's energy reserves.
Think about the computational power required to do what a victim is doing. You have to hold your truth in your mind.
Okay.
Simultaneously, you have to process the conflicting truth the manipulator is violently insisting upon. You have to manage the intense emotional pain of being betrayed or yelled at. And on top of all that, you have to try to logically parse through the conversation to find a peaceful resolution.
The brain is running at 100% capacity all the time.
It is exhausting.
It's like having 50 tabs open on your computer while rendering a 4K video. Eventually, the fan starts screaming and the system crashes.
Exactly. And an exhausted brain becomes highly, highly suggestible. When you are suffering from severe cognitive overload, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for complex logic and rational decision-making, basically just throws its hands up.
It taps out.
It taps out. The brain wants to conserve energy, so it defaults to the absolute simplest possible explanation to make the conflict stop.
And when you are trapped in a relationship with a manipulator, the simplest explanation they hand you on a silver platter is always, I am the problem, my brain is just getting things wrong. It is neurologically easier to accept I am broken than to process the complex, devastating, world-shattering reality of the person I love, trust, and share a life with is systematically abusing my mind.
It is a profound defense mechanism. The brain sacrifices the truth to preserve the attachment.
Wow.
But the neurological impact goes even deeper than just exhaustion and suggestibility. We have to talk about how memory itself is physically constructed.
Oh, the science direct findings.
Yes. The findings on memory reconsolidation are, frankly, staggering.
Yeah.
And they explain exactly how a manipulator gets inside your head.
This completely blew my mind when I read the clinical notes, because I always thought of memory as a recording. Please explain how reconsolidation actually works, because it shatters everything we think we know about our own past.
Most people view human memory like a video recording that gets saved to a secure hard drive in our brain. You experience an event, the brain hits record, saves the file, and when you want to remember it, you retrieve the file, watch it, and put it securely back.
Right, like a DVD.
Exactly. But the neurology shows that is completely false. Every single time we recall a memory, we literally bring it out of long-term storage and it becomes active again.
Okay.
And here is the crucial part. In that active state, the memory becomes structurally vulnerable. The neural pathways are unlocked. This phase is called reconsolidation.
So human memory isn't a locked video file. It's more like
It's like a live document.
a live document on the cloud. You open it to look at it, but while you have that document open, it could be changed.
Exactly. Now imagine you recall a memory, you open that document because you want to talk to your partner about something hurtful they did.
Right.
The memory is active, it is vulnerable, and while it is open, your partner starts screaming at you. They introduce massive amounts of emotional stress and they repeatedly inject new false data into the situation. I never said that. You were acting crazy. You threw the plate, not me.
Oh my God. Because the document is open and the brain is under extreme stress, they are effectively corrupting the save file in real time.
That is exactly what happens on a synaptic level. TAN Online and gaslighting check research show that under extreme emotional pressure, the brain struggles to separate the historical fact of the memory from the intense emotional distress of the current argument.
So it all gets blurred together.
Yes. Over time, the misinformation literally merges with the original memory. When the brain finally closes the document and stores it away again, it saves the corrupted version. The victim isn't just agreeing to keep the peace anymore. The physical structure of their memory has been altered.
That is deeply disturbing. The manipulator is quite literally rewriting the code of your past.
There are.
But it doesn't stop there, does it? Because the literature also points out that chronic emotional manipulation triggers a chronic stress response in the body. The victim is constantly walking on eggshells, constantly flooded with adrenaline and cortisol.
Yes, the constant state of fight or flight. And prolonged exposure to cortisol has a highly specific toxic effect on the brain. Specifically, it degrades the hippocampus.
And for our listeners, the hippocampus is the part of the brain entirely responsible for forming and organizing long-term memories.
Correct. It is the librarian of your mind. So when a victim is subjected to months or years of this specific type of reality-distorting abuse, the terrifying reality is that their memory might genuinely start failing.
Because the librarian is sick.
Exactly. They might start misplacing their keys, forgetting appointments, losing the thread of conversations, not because they are inherently flawed, not because they are crazy, but because the biological hardware of their memory center is being actively degraded by chronic stress.
I want to pause the deep dive right here and speak directly to you listening to this right now. If you have ever been in a relationship, whether it's a romantic partner, a boss, a parent, and you felt like your memory was just inexplicably getting worse over time,
Pay attention to that.
if you found yourself constantly losing track of what was said, forgetting basic details of your day, or feeling like your brain was just completely scrambled, it might not be a medical issue. It might not be early onset anything. It might be a biological survival response to severe, sustained cognitive overload.
The environment is damaging the hardware.
Your brain's save files are being actively corrupted and your hardware is overheating.
It is a profound paradigm shift for a victim to realize that their constant state of confusion is a symptom of their toxic environment, not a defect in their character.
Now that we know why the brain physically struggles so much to hold on to objective reality, let's look at exactly what these corrupted save files look like in real, everyday conversations.
The theater of manipulation.
Yes, the theater. Because reading the clinical definitions of memory reconsolidation is one thing, but living it in your kitchen on a Tuesday night is another. The sources, Anna Loneliness, Help Guide, RJ Starr, they provide several highly realistic case studies of this playing out in real time.
Let's walk through them. Let's set the stage for one of these typical interactions.
Okay, scene 1. Denying a promise. Picture this. You go to your partner because you are genuinely hurt. You say, hey, you promised you'd come to my big work presentation last week. I was really hurt that you didn't show up.
A completely normal bid for connection.
Right, and accountability. And they immediately, without missing a single beat, respond, no, I didn't. You're mixing things up again. I said I'd try to make it if I wasn't too busy.
And boom.
And in that exact moment, you feel that internal jolt. Your stomach drops. You think to yourself, wait, I clearly remember them looking at me and saying, yes, I will be there. But why do they sound so absolutely sure of themselves? Maybe I just heard what I wanted to hear. Maybe I misheard.
In this specific dynamic, I want to highlight an incredible insight from psychology today. This interaction is not a debate over facts. It is entirely driven by a manufactured power imbalance.
A power imbalance.
Yes, you have a highly confident manipulator facing off against a naturally self-doubting victim. The victim is approaching the conversation with empathy, openness, and a willingness to be wrong.
Because that's what healthy people do.
Exactly. But the manipulator is approaching it with the absolute intent to dominate. The sheer audacity, the unwavering confidence of the manipulator's lie is exactly what makes the empathetic victim fold.
I see.
The victim's brain processes the interaction and assumes no human being could possibly lie that smoothly, with such a straight face, while looking me in the eye, therefore I must be the one who is confused.
It's the confidence that sells the reality distortion. It's a con trick. You project your own morality onto them, assuming they wouldn't lie about something so basic, so you take the hit yourself.
Precisely.
Let's look at scene 2. How they escalate this. When you try to talk about your feelings, you gather your courage and say, okay, but when you joked about my weight in front of your friends yesterday, it really embarrassed me.
Vulnerability.
Yeah. And they laugh, shake their head, say, you're seriously upset about a joke. God, you need to stop being so sensitive. It's exhausting trying to talk to you.
Notice the incredibly sinister pivot in this exchange. It happens in the blink of an eye. The conversation starts about an action in the real world, the behavior that happened, the joke.
Right.
But in exactly one sentence, the manipulator shifts the entire focus of the argument from the external action to the victim's internal character.
So fast.
The fact that they humiliated you in public is completely erased from the agenda. The court is no longer in session regarding their behavior. Suddenly, you are the one on the witness stand, on trial for your personality flaw of being too sensitive.
And what does the victim inevitably walk away thinking? They don't think, my partner is mean. They walk away thinking, maybe my feelings are too much. They seem so exhausted by me.
Yeah.
Maybe the problem really is me.
Exactly. The narrative has successfully been hijacked and moved away from something hurtful happened to there is something deeply wrong with how I process the world.
Let's look at scene 3, the ultimate culmination of this. Rewriting an argument. You finally hit your breaking point. You say, yesterday you yelled at me and called me stupid. Yep. And they instantly shoot back, their voice completely level and calm. I didn't yell. You always say I'm yelling when I'm just talking normally. You're the one who lost it, started crying, and slammed the door. You're acting completely unhinged.
A total reversal.
Now, the actual objective, verifiable truth is that they shouted at you for 20 minutes and you eventually left the room in tears just to escape the verbal assault. But they have completely flipped the script.
This brings us right back to the brain, the hippocampus, and how it files things away under stress. When this complete narrative rewrite happens consistently every single time there is a conflict, every single time you try to stand up for yourself, the victim's brain stops fighting it.
The reconsolidation kicks in.
Yes. When the memory is reconsolidated and put back in the vault, it doesn't get filed under "my partner was verbally abusive today." It gets filed under "I am a dramatic person."
It's literally like a magician's sleight of hand. You go into the conversation trying to address something they did wrong, to hold them accountable, and 5 minutes later, you find yourself tearfully apologizing to them for your tone of voice.
Or for bringing it up at a bad time.
Or for being such a burden. You walk away feeling grateful that they are still willing to put up with you. You don't even know how you got there.
The sleight of hand is the perfect way to describe it. It's misdirection. And this brings us to what I consider the most profound and, frankly, the most insidious part of our entire deep dive today.
Let's get into it.
Because we have to understand that this isn't just about winning household arguments. It's not about getting away with bad behavior. It's about how this process fundamentally rewrites not just your memory of individual events, but your actual core identity.
The invisible cage. The psychiatric sources like Anadolu Medical Center and Medical News Today refer to this as the systematic destruction of the target's inner story.
Yes, the inner story.
When you are subjected to this reality hacking over months or years, how does your mind actually change? How does it alter the person you are? Multiple frameworks detail this horrific internal shift. The target starts having frequent intrusive thoughts that they never used to have.
They start thinking, I must be crazy.
I am impossible to please, or I blow everything out of proportion. They lose the ability to make simple decisions. They become entirely hopelessly dependent on the abuser for the truth, thinking, I can't trust my own brain, I'll just ask them what really happened. Their memory is so much better than mine.
You see a complete outsourcing of reality. The victim abdicates their own sovereignty. They start apologizing constantly, compulsively, even to inanimate objects, even when they have absolutely no idea what they did wrong, just to preemptively keep the peace. And incredibly, to the absolute bewilderment of everyone around them, they begin fiercely defending the abuser's behavior to the outside world.
Right. They tell their friends, oh, they didn't mean it. They're just under a lot of stress at work. Or, you don't understand, I'm a really difficult, demanding person to live with. I pushed them to it.
They literally become the PR team for their own abuser. They manage the optics of their own destruction.
But this raises the biggest question. The one everyone on the outside, the friends, the family, the co-workers, always asks with so much frustration.
Why don't they just leave?
Yes. Why don't they just see it? If it's this bad, if they are crying all the time, why doesn't the victim just wake up, realize they are being manipulated, and walk out the door?
It is the most common question asked by anyone who hasn't experienced it, and it is heavily, meticulously addressed in the literature by advocates and abuse experts like DVSN and Therapy Group DC.
What do they say?
There are several compounding, deeply human reasons why the invisible cage works so well. First, as we mentioned earlier, is the gradual escalation. It does not start with extreme psychological warfare. Early incidents look exactly like normal disagreements. The abuser might be charming, loving, and supportive 90% of the time in the beginning.
Right, and they exploit normal human fallibility. We are all human. We all do misremember details sometimes.
We all misinterpret a tone of voice.
We all have moments where we are stressed and we overreact. The manipulator takes those normal 1% human glitches, the time you forgot where you parked, the time you genuinely misunderstood text message, and they collect them as evidence.
They weaponize your humanity to invalidate 100% of your reality.
They say, see, you completely forgot where you parked the car yesterday, so clearly your brain is slipping. You cannot be trusted to remember what I said to you last night.
Exactly. They build a compelling, evidence-based case against your sanity using your own minor mistakes. Another massive biological factor keeping the victim in the dark is trust and attachment.
How so?
If the manipulator is your romantic partner, your parent, your older sibling, or a mentor, your brain has a vested, deeply ingrained biological interest in maintaining that attachment for survival and social cohesion. We are wired to want to believe that the people we love are inherently good.
So the cognitive dissonance is just too high.
It's unbearable. So, when faced with overwhelming cognitive dissonance, the brain decides it is much safer and much less emotionally apocalyptic to believe I am flawed and I need to try harder than to accept the terrifying, world shattering reality that the person who is supposed to love and protect me is intentionally destroying my mind.
That makes so much sense. It's a psychological survival mechanism to stay blind to it. Plus, Help Guide points out emotional abuse is so easily normalized because it leaves no physical marks. You can't take a picture of a reconsolidated memory to show the police.
No, you can't.
And frankly, modern manipulators often mimic the language of therapy or reasonable disagreement to hide what they're doing. A manipulator can say the most devastating, cruel, reality-altering things to you in a perfectly calm, quiet, even soothing voice.
Which is maddening.
And if they are calm and you are sobbing, shaking, and screaming out of sheer frustration, well, society tells us the crying, shouting person is the irrational one. The abuser looks like the victim.
This is the essence of the invisible cage. The bars are forged from your own weaponized empathy and self-doubt. And if we connect this to the bigger picture that the experts outline, we realize that this reality distortion rarely, if ever, operates in a vacuum.
What do you mean?
It is usually the engine, the power source of a much broader, more comprehensive framework of abuse known as coercive control.
Yes, Emma Katz and Embethine dive deep into this. The literature on coercive control is harrowing. Experts define coercive control not as a series of angry outbursts, but as a sustained, calculated campaign to strip a human being of their autonomy, their independent identity, and their connection to the outside world.
It's a whole integrated system of domestic terrorism.
It really is.
Think about the dark synergy of these tactics when they are combined. Coercive control heavily involves isolation, subtly cutting you off from your friends, turning you against your family, monitoring your messages, maybe moving you to a new city. It involves micro-regulating your daily decisions, controlling your finances, dictating what you wear.
And then you add the reality distortion.
When you put reality distortion inside that framework of isolation, it becomes infinitely more powerful.
Because there's no one around to tell you the sky's blue.
Precisely. Isolation keeps the victim away from third-party reality checks. You have no sounding board. Gaslighting then makes the victim unsure of their own internal reality. And the behavioral control forces total physical and financial dependency.
Wow.
When you combine those three forces, isolation, reality distortion, and dependency reality simply becomes whatever the abuser dictates it is. You exist entirely inside their simulation.
I was trying to think of a way to describe this gradual erosion that doesn't rely on the old boiling frog metaphor. It's almost like downloading a software update on an older phone.
Oh, that's good.
The first update just changes the font, you barely notice it. The next update removes a feature you liked, but you adjust. The next update slows down the processing speed. And eventually you're holding a device that barely functions, that crashes every time you try to open an app, and you just accept that this is how phones work now. You don't realize the software was maliciously designed to deprecate your system until your entire identity has been eroded down to one single overriding operating system, the person who is always wrong.
That is a chilling but perfectly accurate summary of what it feels like to live inside a coercive control environment. You don't even realize the operating system has been entirely rewritten.
So what does this all mean? We've explored the dark mechanics of how a mind is systematically dismantled. But if someone listening to this right now feels a pit in their stomach, if they realize that they are holding that deprecated device, that they are existing inside this invisible cage right now, how do they get out?
They need a roadmap.
How do you rebuild a brain that has been systematically untaught to trust itself? What is the defense against this malware?
The good news, the truly empowering part of the clinical literature we reviewed from the Cleveland Clinic, Healthline, and RJ Starr, is that the sources provide a very concrete, actionable roadmap to reclaiming your mind. Reversing this process is entirely possible, but it requires deliberate action.
Where does it start?
It starts with externalizing the problem. Step 1, you have to name it.
Name it. Meaning, instead of sitting in the dark and saying, I'm crazy, my memory is terrible, I'm a burden, you look at the behavior and say, this is gaslighting, this is reality distortion, this is coercive control.
Exactly. The psychological relief of this initial step cannot be overstated. When you learn the vocabulary, when you label the behavior as a known, documented, clinically studied psychological tactic, it ceases to be a personal flaw.
It's not just me.
No. You move your internal narrative from, my brain is fundamentally broken, to, someone is actively using a known technique against me. It externalizes the problem. You are not the disease. You are experiencing symptoms of a toxin in your environment.
And once you've named it, you have to protect your hardware. Step 2. The sources strongly advise keeping a private record. They suggest writing down dates, specific conversations, exact phrases that were used, and how you felt in the moment.
This is critical. We talked extensively earlier about the memory reconsolidation phase.
A live document.
Right. How recalling a memory in the presence of an abusive partner makes it structurally vulnerable to being corrupted and overwritten. Keeping a hidden written record completely bypasses that biological vulnerability. When they look at you a week later and calmly say, "That never happened, I never called you that name," you do not have to rely on your stressed, exhausted, cortisol-flooded hippocampus to fight them. You quietly look at your notes from that day. Your written record acts as an external hard drive for your reality. It is incorruptible by their words.
That is so practical and brilliant. You're taking the data out of the vulnerable cloud and putting it on a secure physical drive.
Exactly.
And once you have that data, you take it to the next step, which is step 3. Reality checking with safe people. Taking this out of your own isolated head and sharing it with a trusted friend, a sister, a therapist, or a domestic abuse support line.
Yes.
But the crucial key here is sharing specific data points, not just vague emotional impressions.
Exactly. This is where victims often stumble because they are so emotionally overwhelmed. Don't go to your friend and just say, "I feel like I'm going crazy. My partner and I fight all the time and I'm always confused."
Because that just sounds like normal relationship strife.
Right. You have to use your external hard drive. You go to your friend and say, "On Tuesday at 6 p.m., they looked at me and said exactly this. On Wednesday morning, they looked me in the eye and claimed they never said it and then told me I was losing my mind."
That's a huge difference.
Sharing the specific granular data breaks the isolation chamber of coercive control. When a safe, healthy third party looks at your data and says, "Whoa, that is not normal, that is manipulation," it acts as an anchor. It pulls you back from their simulation into objective reality.
That brings us to step 4, a concept from the GDV Learning Network that I think is the most brilliant, simple, and profound insight in this entire deep dive. It's a diagnostic tool called context mapping.
Context mapping is incredibly useful.
If you are doubting your sanity, you just ask yourself one very specific question. Do I only feel this confused, forgetful, and completely crazy around one specific person?
It is an incredibly powerful diagnostic question because it cuts through all the noise. If you can manage your complex projects at work, if you clearly remember the long conversations you have with your friends, if you can navigate your finances, if your memory and your emotional regulation are perfectly functional in 90% of your life.
But your brain completely collapses into a foggy, forgetful, anxious mess the moment you walk through your front door and see your partner.
Then your brain isn't broken. The dynamic is broken.
You don't have early onset dementia that magically only flares up in the presence of one specific human being.
Yeah.
The environment is the toxin. You are allergic to the manipulation.
Exactly. The confusion is a localized allergic reaction to abuse, which leads us to the final step, step 5. And perhaps the hardest mental shift required to escape the cage. You have to actively reaffirm your absolute right to your own perception.
Now let me push back on this, or rather, let me ask you a question on behalf of anyone who has tried to do this, because this is exactly where people hit a brick wall. What if you try to reaffirm your perception? What if you stand your ground and the manipulator demands proof? What if they say, "Oh yeah, show me the proof. Show me the exact timestamp where I did that. Prove to me beyond a reasonable doubt that I said those exact words, or else you have to admit you're making it up." How do you fight that impossible standard?
You don't fight it. And that is the secret of this final step. Reaffirming your perception is not about gathering enough evidence to win a court case against a gaslighter. You will never, ever win a debate with them.
Because they're not playing by the rules of reality.
Exactly. They are playing a game of dominance. Reaffirming your perception means accepting that you do not need to prove you are 100% infallible to have a right to your feelings. You don't need a legally binding transcript of the argument. You simply look at them and state, "My feelings are valid data, even if you disagree with them." Or, "I know what I experienced, and I am not debating my reality with you anymore." It is about setting an impenetrable internal boundary. You are reclaiming your basic trust in your own mind completely, regardless of whether they ever validate it or not.
You stop waiting for the hacker to admit they hacked you. You stop trying to convince them of your reality, and you just start living in it again. I want to remind you, the listener, of something the clinical text and the survivor literature make explicitly, unapologetically clear.
This is so important.
If you fell into this trap, if you lost months or years or even decades to doubting your own mind, you are not weak. You are not stupid. You are not gullible. You were systematically trained into it by someone who clinically exploited your trust, your deep empathy, and the very biological structural mechanisms of your human memory.
It is a conditioning process as rigorous as any psychological experiment, recognizing that conditioning is the first necessary step to breaking it.
To quickly recap the intense journey we've been on today, we've learned that this reality distortion isn't just a defensive lie to cover a mistake. It's a systematic, offensive hack of your cognitive processing.
Deny, minimize, rewrite, repeat.
Exactly. It uses a relentless loop of tactics denying the facts, trivializing your feelings, rewriting the history of the event, projecting the blame, and punishing you with silence. This loop physically exhausts your brain's resources, leverages the structural vulnerability of memory reconsolidation to corrupt your mental files, and isolates you within a terrifying framework of coercive control until you are forced to live entirely inside someone who's a fictional story. But you also possess the concrete tools to name the tactic, document your reality on an external drive, map out the context of your confusion, and reclaim your sovereignty.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building directly on the neurology we discussed today.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
We spend a lot of time looking at how incredibly malleable human memory is, how it can be essentially reprogrammed through repeated external pressure, cortisol, and stress during the reconsolidation phase. It's objectively terrifying to realize your mind can be hacked and rewritten that way. But think about the flip side of that neurological coin.
What do you mean?
If our brains are so wonderfully plastic, so adaptable that they can be systematically untrained to trust themselves by an outside force, doesn't that logically mean you possess the exact same neurological hardware to deliberately reprogram and rebuild your own self-trust?
Oh, wow.
Neuroplasticity goes both ways. The vulnerability that allowed your reality to be rewritten is the exact same biological mechanism of neuroplasticity you will use to write it back. Every single time you write down your truth in a journal, every time you validate your own feeling without asking for permission, every time you set a boundary, you are rewriting the code of your own mind.
You're forging new neural pathways.
Yes, you are actively healing the hardware.
The machine that was broken is the exact same machine that has the power to fix itself. I absolutely love that. Take a deep breath today. Trust your own eyes. Trust your own ears. Trust the data of your own feelings. And please, keep questioning the narratives handed to you.